I was listening to NPR on the drive up here, and the TED radio hour was talking about time, and there are all different theories about time, and how it's totally different. Like when you're 5 years old, hours just forever, and as you get older, time seems to go more quickly. It's like the mind doesn't really know how to download time. It's a very odd thing. One guy had this theory. He said, so you have the past and the present, the past and the future, and the present. Most people, if you ask them what's real, they say, oh, the present. He goes, no, the present's just an illusion. All that's real is the past and the future. Which made me think, well, wait a minute, if the past and the future is based on the present, that makes that an illusion too. At least he got that one part right.
That is interesting.
So you have this moment right here and now. And I always say, see, that's where God is. That's where you are. Your essence is right there, right here, right now, always. Always present. In this very moment. Now the problem is, a mind is incapable of touching this very moment. And that's why, the teachers, they say, why don't you meditate? Sit quietly for a while, and maybe something will happen. And then, if you work at it, sometimes you're lucky and the mind drops to the wayside and you're just in the moment. And there's this awesome experience of presence. And that was really great, the mind says. And the moment it says that, the present is gone. And now it's just a memory in the past. That's because the mind isn't actually capable of getting to where you want to go as a spiritual seeker. The mind can't do it. The best thing that could happen is that the mind recedes into the background. And then you can see what's always been here. You see? So the mind isn't actually the tool that you need to get to where you hope to go as a spiritual seeker. What to do? I guess we'll think about it.
Forget about it.
If you can. So, you see, what I do, I spend a lot of time giving out concepts that just help erode your idea of who you are, so that eventually the mind and your belief in yourself as an individual separate from God becomes less and less and diminishes. And then eventually it diminishes enough to where when you're just in that moment of now, and the mind goes, oh look, nobody cares. And then the moment of now is all there is. And then the mind's doing its thing, but nobody cares. Because no one feels personally associated with those thoughts and those feelings. It's the personalization that gets you into trouble. It's the idea that you are something other than the mind, that you are your thoughts and feelings, that you are this body. As soon as it becomes personal, as soon as it becomes me, then a veil is created that blocks you from seeing what has always been there and who you truly are. Because who you truly are is not personal, it's universal. It's not, personal is very small, it's just me. There's billions of people thinking about me all the time. They're thinking about themselves, they're thinking about what they're going to do, they're thinking about what they think, and they're thinking about what they feel, and they're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, boom, me. It's all me. But really, me is nothing. I mean, you can tell it's itty-bitty, there's billions of them, and if you go into outer space and look, you can't even see them anymore, they're all that tiny. And they're fleeting too. The me that you think you are right now will last no longer than this lifetime. And this lifetime may seem like a long time to you, but in a million years it won't. Everything here is transitory. Everything. The body, thoughts, feelings, they just come and go all the time. They're always changing. But your essence, that which we all are, is eternal. And it's unchanging. Just like how this moment, right now, is the same exact thing as it was when you were 5 years old. It's the same. And it's the same exact thing for you as it is for me. It's the same exact thing. You see that oneness? That's how you know where home is that it never changes. And that is universal. A me can't get there. I want that. Well, good luck. Because an illusion can't touch the truth. And if it did, who would care? It wouldn't matter. You see? Now, what I'm considering an illusion is that which is temporary, that which is constantly changing. And that would include all the me's out there. You see? Eternal is always the same. In essence, each and every one of us are identical. We're all the same. So Baba used to say, God dwells within you as you. He didn't say, well, maybe a little more than you, a little less than you. Nah, it's different. It's not different. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same God, exactly the same essence, dwells within everyone and everything. So it's all one. And it never changes. It's always the same. Sounds boring, doesn't it? Only to a mind. But it's not boring, it's always new. So when I met Baba, I saw in him a peace and happiness that had eluded me my whole life. And I wanted it. So I put all my energy into getting it. I made that my priority, to know that peace. Because for me, being identified, being totally lost in my mind, was excruciating. I don't think it is for everybody, or at least not that they're aware of. But I was aware of it. I wasn't happy with it. So I tried my best to find a way to break free. Now, Ramesh used to say, he said, The enlightenment will happen in spite of what you do, not because of it. And he was actually correct. But it didn't matter. I had to try. I had to try until a part of me gave up. Then it just happened on its own. But that happens on its own, you see. But the only thing that's required here is a certain level of what Nisargadatta, Ramesh's guru, called earnestness, and what I call sincerity. A certain level of one-pointedness where you know what you want and you go for it 100%. You see, because this is a very, very, very ingrained habit of identifying with yourself as an individual. And all your friends and the society and your family are all moving down that road of believing themselves to be real, and believing this to be real, and believing themselves to be an individual body-mind. That's who you are. But time will prove that not to be true. No matter how significant your life may seem to you, in 1,000 years it's going to be meaningless. In 100 years it's going to be meaningless. And I would say, right now it's actually meaningless. So, if you want to find true meaning, you'll have to move beyond that which is meaningless. You see, when you're everything, meaning has no meaning either. Everything just is. It's quite simple.
You said our essence, or we are is eternal.
Yes.
How do you know that?
I just made it up.
Okay.
Oh, bye.
I'm simply giving you concepts so your mind can be in alignment with this, okay?
Okay.
As far as you can understand, as an identified individual, you can look at it as eternal because it's everything. It has no beginning, it has no end, you see. And what you've been thinking about yourself to be, anyway, is temporary. It's constantly changing, that's all. These are just concepts. You know, the truth isn't a concept. The truth is nothing that you could understand with the mind. It's not... understanding is a tool used to distinguish that which appears to have distinction. Well, I just described, we're everything. There's no distinction, you see. In fact, there's an appearance of distinction, but that appearance is just an illusion. So I'm working with what you're working with. You're working with the mind. So I'm giving your mind concepts that will undermine all your old concepts. Okay, so let's say you took this to heart and you said, I'm eternal and all this is temporary. Then you start, when life goes on and things start going not your way and this happens and that happens, you just don't take it too seriously because it's not real. And then eventually you see it undermines your previous notions of who you are. And when they're undermined enough, it all collapses upon itself. And when that happens, and you're just being without identifying, you don't need any concepts. You don't need any beliefs. None of them apply. Like I say, you know, I talk about this with you guys. I don't think about it. I don't have any beliefs. I don't have any personal concepts at all. You know, but I go through life and do whatever I do. And I do these talks and say whatever I say. But really, you know, whatever you believe today is not going to be what you believe in 10 years. And it wasn't what you believed 10 years ago. Beliefs are just a mobile thing. So, you know, just if something gets said here and it just rings true to you, by all means, nurture that. If it brings peace to you, by all means, why not live in peace? But nothing, no word or concept could even touch anything that's true. Anything that's real. Because they're words, they're concepts. They live in a world of illusion. Yes, the irony is that an illusion seeks to know the truth. And you know, that's genuinely funny. But still, that's the way it's done. That's the way it happens. Oddly enough, it works in time. Mm-hmm. Yes. So these are just concepts. But you see if it rings true to you, if it makes sense to you. If you see, here's the thing. The truth can be known, but not here. But it's something that you just kind of can tell, you can feel it. So there's certain things that get said that remind you of that truth that you already know somewhere, but you don't know it here. And so you just take those little tidbits, those little arrows that point to the truth, and you work with those. And hopefully they do enough damage to the who that you think you are, that the who that you think you are loses its position. It is no longer primary. You know, really, you know, this moment is everything. Right here, right now is everything. That's all there is. And what happens is the thoughts and feelings come up, and you're just thinking about what you're thinking about and feeling what you're feeling, and this moment has become veiled. It's become covered up, and all you see is the activity. Really, all there is here is stillness. But your mind is constantly moving around, and your thoughts, and all of your attention is lost in movement. It's just temporary, though. It doesn't last any longer than a lifetime, so no worries. It's okay. But if you're impatient like I was, I'm offering a shortcut. How to get out of this. And maybe it'll work for some of you. It did for me. You know, it could work. It's possible.
I thought of something funny on the way up here.
Yeah, what's that?
You're not saying, what's the matter you?
Yes.
What's samadhi you?
What's
Samadhi.
Samadhi
What's
you?
Samadhi you.
Oh, samadhi you too.
Actually, I was thinking about that. Samadhi, it's a state of bliss, right?
Yes.
So, and you have, I know, Saha Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. I find it interesting that those states of consciousness can be defined like that.
It's amazing what a mind can do.
Well, I mean, are they not states of consciousness, though?
I suppose, but you know, no. When I was at the ashram, okay, I was chief of security in South Fallsburg, the first winter. There were only a dozen of us there, and but there was someone on the security desk, 724. So it's my job. I check in on this guy, you know, a Mexican fellow. He's fast asleep. He's snoring. Hey man, you're sleeping. He goes, no, I wasn't. I was meditating. I said, man, you were snoring. He goes, I was in samadhi then, the deepest meditation. No more going into samadhi when you're working. In the state of samadhi, there's no me. It's like deep sleep, you see. You know, we all have this experience every night. There's a point of sleep, deep sleep, where you don't even know you exist. Yet you're afraid of death. But every night you have that experience. There's no me. There's no one. There's nothing. And you wake up and you feel refreshed.
It's a relief not to be me.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So,
Well, I was also thinking, there's Sat Chit Ananda,
yes,
existence, Ananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss.
yes,
I think, okay, we got existence. Hopefully we have consciousness.
yes,
So what's left? Bliss.
right.
So we're all seeking bliss. That's the next step.
You see,
And
but
we-
bliss is not understood correctly. Bliss is thought to be a...
It's overrated.
Oh, yes. See, bliss is thought to be a personal state. I'm in bliss, you see. But bliss is the state of no personal. It's impersonal entirely. It's just a state of being. You see, and so Baba, he was in bliss all the time. And Muktananda is in constant bliss, right? But to see him in the kitchen sometimes, when he was throwing pots and pans and yelling at the cooks, you would think, well, that doesn't seem very blissful to me. But it was.
Yeah.
You see, none of it was personal. And it's unconditional. You see, so it doesn't matter if one is happy or sad or laughing or yelling, it's all the same. That's bliss. You see, so it's that sameness that I was talking about, that state of everything being one. So everything's included. Now, as an individual, you like to pick and choose. You say, well, you know, this I feel good about, I'm comfortable with, I'm laughing. This sadness sucks. I don't like the way I feel, I don't want it. And then you start going after the things you want and pushing away the things you don't want. And then you live a life I call suffering. You see? Now, enlightened being has all of the feelings. All of them. He doesn't pick and choose. He doesn't say, oh, I wish I felt happier today. Oh, I'm so sorry, I feel sad today. You know, Baba would yell at someone, he didn't have any problem with it, it was over when it was over. It was just done. You heard that story, I've told many times. So, in Ganeshpuri, Baba was in the kitchen, and you know, he was very particular about how the food was prepared. If a cook was thinking something they shouldn't be thinking, he really got on them. So this one day, he was really angry about how the food was being prepared. And he's throwing pots and pans, literally, and yelling at the cooks. And one of the swamis, she was just going into the kitchen, and she saw this, and Baba was like getting ready to leave the kitchen, and she did not want to be in that path. But there she was. So you know how the big double doors they have. So she dove behind one of the double doors there, going out of the kitchen. Baba comes storming out, and he peeks around because he saw her. He peeks around and goes, how was I, good? You see, it was done. It was done. There was no one. Now you would think Baba would be going, if it was, you were, you know, someone who was identified, Baba would be going, oh, I'm an enlightened being, I shouldn't be behaving this way. What will my disciples think? None of this is going on. Give a rat's ass. It was all fun. Yeah,
I've heard a lot of those stories about people that got the wrath of Baba,
yeah.
and they fried, but later on, usually they experience some sort of bliss or something, awakening, freeing.
It's what was needed in that case.
Yeah.
Someone once described it as like getting hit by a silk sledgehammer. So, true bliss is just not personal. There's no me involved, and it's unconditional. So, when I say everything is one, that actually includes the me. That includes the personality. That includes all the feelings and all the thoughts. You know, the mistake spiritual seekers make is to try and use spiritual teachings to get the ego to be the way they want it to be. Which, of course, is just basically empowering the ego to try and get rid of the ego, which only strengthens the ego. So you know, basically a waste of time, at best. People use the spiritual teachings, the ego uses the spiritual teachings to get what it thinks it wants. So, you know, when I was first going after enlightenment, I thought it meant, you know, 24-hour happiness, because that's what I had observed in Baba. And so I just thought it was a new and improved way of being a much better me. A me I could be really comfortable with all the time. But you see, it's not that. True unconditional love includes everything. It includes the things that you may not be comfortable with, or you might not prefer. But if they're there, they're there. So it's a great journey, though. You know, I recommend this because you only get to discover yourself once. You see? So it's like, enjoy. You know, when I used to go see Ramesh, you know, and this was true with Baba too. Everyone, I was the young one everywhere I went. And Ramesh would go, I don't understand. What is your rush? I mean, what do you think you're going to do when you get there? You know, he was right. But I was impatient by nature. It still took a long time, so it was all right.
Wasn't Ramesh retired when he started?
Pretty much. Yeah, in India, you retire at 60, and that's when he met his true guru. The rest of the stuff was just kind of more traditional in the family, but it didn't really touch his heart. And he read an article about Nisargadatta, and it turns out he was like within walking distance of his house. So he went to see him. And that was, when he talked, it was like, oh yeah, that resonated with him. It was very strongly, yes. So for him, you know, his sadhana was only, you know, a couple few years, like that. It was very short. Because he was totally ready at that point. He was ripe. I needed more time on the vine. Yes.
What is the state of samadhi, and how does it relate to the enlightenment?
Beats the hell out of me. You know, these are just, these are concepts, and I'm not deeply familiar, really. But samadhi, I suppose, is a deep state of meditation, you see, that would really simulate deep sleep where it's just, there's no me at all. You see, it's supposed to be the highest. The thing is, you see, it's temporary. It's just a temporary thing that the mind goes, look what I had. That's where I know what it is now, because I was there, you see. Which is, of course, not possible. But that's what minds do when they get a hold of something cool. And you see, so when there's strong identity with the mind, then all of these experiences are fleeting. They're temporary. You see, just like everything else with the mind. When the identity with the mind diminishes, then an experience like that of complete oneness is no longer fleeting. It's permanent. And even though there's a mind and a body, there's no one personalizing any of that. It's all just stuff that's going on, but it's not going on to me. It's just happening. You see? And it's not happening at the same time. And that just goes on until it doesn't want to anymore. And your place is one of steadiness. So like when Ramana Maharshi was dying of cancer, he was like, why are you all so upset? I'm here. I'm always here. It's like he could see no difference at all because there was no personal association with the body at all. His presence was complete and universal and could never change. But the disciples thought he was something different. Probably special. Yeah, so you know, I'm not an expert on samadhi, but that state of absolute being, impersonal being, which cannot be described because it's universal and it has no distinctions, you see. You know, the mind will try and describe it and give it categories and what level it's on. But that's just the mind. That has nothing to do with what it is. The mind cannot possibly describe that which is eternal, that which is unchanging, because there's nothing for the mind to hold on to there. Yes.
It's been a long time since I read it, but Baba's Play of Consciousness, I think he actually talks a lot about those states.
Yes, he does.
It's kind of a handbook for states of consciousness.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He gave people lots to play with. There were, I mean, really, and he was talking to thousands, so many people, on all different levels. And also, he was a sadhu for many, many years. And he knew all the scriptures by heart. And yes, indeed, he was a real scholar of these things. I'm not. I am no good at foreign languages. Sanskrit is just not my thing. Never was. So yes, and for 1,000 different seekers, there are 1,000 different paths. So Baba had them all covered. You know, you could pick and choose. There was chanting, there was meditating, there was hanging out with the guru, there was this, there was that, there was satsang, there were questions, there were answers. It just went on. Yeah, it was like a buffet. It was a spiritual buffet. For whatever suited your particular taste. And that's fine. But ultimately, everything is one. And it doesn't matter how you divide it up, because one is still one. Ultimately, everything that Baba ever said boiled down to God dwells within you as you, which means same. We're all the same. Everything's the same. So then, it was like a spiritual playground. There were all these different, there were slides and merry-go-round and all kinds of stuff. You could take a ride. And it's important, the main thing is to live a life that you're more peaceful with, that you have a sense of peace about. And that may involve believing all kinds of garbage. You see people in life and they believe things you could never believe, but they're happy. So good for them. Good for them. You wouldn't want to tell them they're wrong. They wouldn't believe you anyway. Yes.
So I haven't heard you use the word love or live from the heart as opposed to the mind or the head.
It depends on the day.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, when we're talking about this illusion that we experience because of the premise that we're a person or an individual self, when that illusion drops, is there another illusion that the heart creates?
Well, I would hope not, because then you've just made it into a ladder of steps, you see. So one time I was with Ramesh, and Ramesh, he used the word consciousness a lot and God a lot. And I say, well, Ramesh, you never talk about God. He looked at me, he goes, that's all I've ever talked about. You see, and he's just using the word. I hope I said that right. You never talk about love. And he said, well, that's all I've ever talked about. And so for him, he was just using different words at different times, as I do. Consciousness. I use the word oneness, but really the word love is fine, okay? But you're thinking personal love. You're thinking that loving feeling you get, which is very pleasurable, you see. But I'm talking about impersonal love. I'm talking about unconditional love. Love that accepts everything, including the unacceptable. You see? So it's a love that embraces all things. That's why I tend to stay away from it. At times I don't. It depends on the day. Because people, they attach themselves to that. Consciousness is harder for you to attach your personal to it. Love, it's very easy. I love this. Oh yes, I know what he's talking about. You see, but you don't know what I'm talking about. Because this is a love that embraces everything. So you love yourself. But there's parts of yourself not so much. There's parts of yourself that you prefer not be there. But I'm talking about a love that's totally fine with all of it. Just the way it is, just the way it isn't. It's okay if it stays forever, no matter what it is. You see? So it takes it outside the realm of the personal. So it's not a matter of, really, you see, love is all there is. That's all there is. So when you have that awesome experience of now, occasionally it might come up in meditation or something, your heart is filled with that essence, that being. So, I don't know, did I answer your question at all?
Unconditional love, I mean, yeah, I understand.
Yes.
But it still seems like there's, I don't know, energies involved that maintain the sense of separation.
Oh yes, definitely there are. There's very strong energies. This whole world of illusion is held together very, very well. Okay? God designed it really good. It's not easy to get out of. And if it were easy to get out of, it'd all be gone. You see? It's held together very tightly. So there's all these energies here. There's karmas. There's things that just keep everything in place so it doesn't fall apart. You know, this is God's virtual reality. It's designed better than you could possibly understand. And even if you do make serious spiritual changes, it will attempt to draw you back in. It does every time. You can expect it. You can expect it. When the enlightenment happened, so-called enlightenment, when the understanding had happened, in my case, I called a friend, and she said, well, don't expect it to last. And, you know, I took that to heart. And so I figured it was a temporary experience, like all my other great spiritual experiences were. And so I never expected it to last. You know, and there were, in the very beginning, it seemed like some things were wavering. They weren't really, but it was just that old momentum pulling things through. And in any case, nothing ever stuck again on the personal level. But for years, I never considered it to be a permanent thing. It's been over 20 years now, so probably it is. But so you know, the thing about it is that, you know, there's all different spiritual paths, and there's some that take you on different levels of improvement. You see, now the me can always get closer to the truth, but closer is as close as it can ever get. You see, it can never get to the truth because an illusion cannot know the truth. You see, so there can be stages though that happen, and there's different spiritual paths that take you to different stages. But ultimately, the me, the notion that you are separate from God, has to be destroyed. And it will not destroy itself, so it's a matter of grace. And when it does that on its own. And all that happens, you see, enlightenment's not a big deal. You're just returning from whence you came. You're just simply falling into a natural state of being. That's all. It's really quite effortless. I worked very hard for it, but it is in fact effortless. It's simply the state of being and not doing. The state of doing is somewhere over there, doing whatever it's doing, but it's nothing to do with you. You see, so that's why this idea that you're doing things, that you're achieving things, all of that is karmic. It creates karma. There's still a notion that you're doing it. When that falls off, no more karma is being created. Things are being done, but there's no doer thereof. You see. So you can enjoy the different stages along the way. But ultimately, the truth is there are no stages. Because you already are who you are. What do you have to do to get there? What do you have to do to get closer to that? You already are that. So as soon as you realize that's what you are, then the rest is done. And let the me do whatever it wants. If the me wants to have stages, it can do it on its own. You don't need them. Does that help?
Yes.
Good.
And you once said every single drop of us is embraced, you is embraced
Yes.
by unconditional love.
That's true. I've said that.
So even the dark parts of the Steffi character, like those are, you know, eats too many nuts and things like that.
That's all?
So sorry.
Oh my God. I feel like I need my sunglasses now.
We'll help you work on that.
No, that's all right. I know what you mean.
Yeah, so,
Yes, there-
so we're still embraced by unconditional love in spite of those.
Yes, of course, of course. You know, you're exactly the way God made you. Maybe there's some parts of you that you wish weren't there, but God put them there, so what's the problem? What's the matter with you? So, you see, just knowing that every drop of you is embraced by unconditional love, maybe that will help lighten your load with the things that you're not so pleased with. If you know that God's okay with it, maybe it's okay to be okay with it, you see. Maybe you could take some of that on. So basically, your process is mimicking what God's already doing. And maybe if you learn to mimic it well enough, you'll realize it's already happening, and then you can just not do it anymore. It's already being done. But in the meantime, why don't you pretend you're doing it? You see? And then you can recognize that it's already happening and breathe a sigh of relief and stop working so hard. You see? So that's another technique. And it's important to remember, particularly when the one who likes to eat nuts so much arises, you don't have to beat her down with a stick and say, why do you want that? You know, it's like, okay. It doesn't mean you have to eat the nuts either. You see? But it means that you're just okay with that desire. And I know that nuts are not really the issue.
There's everything else too.
Yes. So that's all right. And just take it on and see if you can approximate what God's already doing. You see? Unconditional love has a certain quality to it. And I learned what that quality is by being with my gurus. Okay? So I always felt that my gurus knew me, how I was. All of it. Including the ugly stuff. And that they loved me anyway. 100%. So it taught me what unconditional love is. And so I could see in my own personal process when I was being conditional and when I wasn't. You see? So it was an interesting process, though. It's a personal process. But ultimately, if you're unable to hold enough of yourself in the moment, then the ultimate surrender is not possible. It'll be blocked by the things that you can't hold. So So it's important in that way. So just love, love, love. That's all. Love, 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 love. Do the best you can. Fake it till you make it. Yes. I mean, the worst that could happen is, you know, Steffi dies and everyone says, "Oh, she was so loving."
Right.
See? It's not so bad.
So I've had to say lately, all right, put it in God's hands, or I'm in God's hands. Is that just one of those phrases that helps me feel at peace?
I don't know, does it?
It kind of helps me accept that I'm not in control.
Okay. Then good. You see, it is in God's hands, but you think it's in your hands. So if when you think it's in your hands, you say, why don't I put it in God's hands? Then once again, you're mimicking the truth, you see. And you may have to pretend that you understand the truth when you don't, for a while, until it sinks in, you see. So as a part of a process, you can, what I call swaha everything. And so you just give it to God, all of it, let it burn off. So, you know, in the yajnas, all the Brahmins and Swamis would sit and they do these chants, blah, 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 whatever it was. As I said, I'm no good at foreign language. But they would have the ghee in a spoon, and they would go, they would drop the ghee in and it would catch fire and swaha. And to me, that always meant like you take whatever it is, and you put it in the fire and let it burn off. Swaha. So that's why I say swaha everything. You just, there's something, Kelly and I use that expression. You just swaha. And so you turn it over to God. Let God take care of it. Let God burn it off, you see. That's all. So, constant process of turning it over to God. I mean, all you're doing is pretending you're doing what God's already doing. God's already got it all, but since you forgot, you might as well give it to Him. Yeah. If it brings more peace into your life, really, that's ideal. That's ideal. The more peace you have, eventually, you see, the thing is that, in fact, all there is this peace, this stillness, is all there is. The mind is only equipped to see movement and distinction, you see. So it's seeing this illusion of things changing when everything's the same. But understand, if everything is one, it has to include that which appears not to be one. Otherwise, it's not everything. So you have this appearance. And because you're identified with your thoughts, you lose yourself in this appearance for a short time. But seriously, everything is stillness and oneness. So whatever you can do to bring that more into your life, if it's a process of swaha, of giving it to God, fine. If that brings more peace into your life, fine. You know, when I was with Ramesh, he was really strong about this, everything is God's will. That was his main thing. And it's really what I needed to hear at the time. It worked well for me. That couldn't possibly be true. How could that which is everything have a will? But still, I was dealing with personal will. And so to believe that God's will ruled, that it's not me, it took the me out of everything. You see, so the me was diminished by that concept. So it was useful for me. So the more you turn it over to God, the more you surrender to God's will, the more peace and stillness you'll feel in your life. Yeah, it works until it doesn't. Because, as long as there's personal identification, there will be difficulty. You have to imagine what it would be like to believe when you're everything. What would it be like to believe that you're not anymore? That would be like a baby crying, wouldn't it? Just like a baby crying. So all of this is basically just a reminder of what you already know, a returning to home. So, who were you before you were born? Who will you be after you die? And what makes you think you're any different now? You see the sameness. And the sameness is that who you were before you were born is who I was before I was born. Same. We all came from the same place. We're all going to the same place. And in this very moment, we are all in the same place. Only personal identification has caused you to believe otherwise. So, that's okay. You go to the movies, and for 2 hours, you forget about your work. You forget about your relationships. You forget where you parked your car. And you just get lost in the colors in the screen and the sounds out of the speakers and the movement, and you're lost in it, and afterwards you say, that was a really good movie. You see? So that's how it is with this life. For a short time, you forget about who you are, and you get lost in the appearance, in these appearances. It's longer than 2 hours, though. But you see, it's not really that long. It only seems long while it's going on. But in a million years, it won't seem that long at all. In fact, in a million years, you could say nothing ever happened. That's true. Nothing ever happened.
We could say it right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Please.
Monty,
Yeah.
from your experience where
Yes.
you are now, are there still how he was talking about the love, the experience of the love, and how Nisargadatta used to say between love and wisdom, his life would flow.
Mm-hmm.
That seems kind of true for me. Like there'll be long periods of just I can't really describe it, but I don't know. like more of an emptiness, like almost like just a huge, the yin and yang, like a huge stage of emptiness, and then it's like something flips a switch, and then all of a sudden there's just fullness, and the emptiness is more like just the pure awareness, and the fullness is more like where everything is love. Do you have that once the eye is dropped? Is there still the vacillations of just, it's a red day, it's an orange day?
You're still experiencing everything personally.
Yeah, there's still
You see, so it's different than that because of that. Now, what Nisargadatta said, he said, in wisdom, I am nothing. In love, I am everything. And between those two, my life rides. You see? So, but here's the thing. They're both going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Always. Okay? So there's complete fullness and emptiness at the same time. This is not a mind state, and it's not a personal state.
Right.
And it's not anything that I can say, oh, well, yes, this is my experience.
There's no
because there's no one there.
experiencing it.
This is just the way everything is. Everything just is. And there's a sense of fullness and emptiness at the same time, in the same intensity, and there's really no difference between them. Okay? So it's just all going on at the same time, and it's not happening to anyone, so no one even notices it. You would notice it because it would be your experience.
There's still someone
Yes.
experiencing
Right, and that's
something.
different. That's different.
Yeah.
So you see, but the true state is just impersonal and just basically everything just is. It's that simple. And in that everything just is everything, which includes everything and includes nothing at the same time. As intense as this moment could be. You see? So it's like that. It's like that. So when I give darshan, there's no one there. And all the energy is just complete love, and there's nothing there because there's no one there. All at the same time. You see? So yes, it's very difficult to explain what an impersonal state is to someone who's only experienced life personally. But you can be reminded. You can be reminded. Some people have meditation experiences where all of a sudden they're out of the picture and all there is a complete sense of oneness with everything, and it's like awesome. And you get that reminder. And if you're still identified with yourself as an individual, then it's an experience that you had, and then it's gone. But if that identity drops, then that awesome experience of now is all there is, and no one thinks it's awesome anymore, because it's everything is so ordinary. It couldn't be any simpler than it is. So, it's all right. This is all approximation at this point. So we're just going to approximate what it is. And maybe some of this will rub off on you. And if it does, it won't be in the words. Ramesh always said the teaching is passed in silence. So really, the message is coming in from behind.
It's interesting you say that, because isn't he the one that you say he talked a lot?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's ironic.
Yeah, he
isn't it?
says the real
The teaching is passed
teaching
in
is passed in
silence.
silence. Wow.
Yes. But you see, he did the same thing I'm doing. He taught the way he was taught. You see? So his guru talked a lot too. And somehow it rubbed off on Ramesh. And so Ramesh talked a lot. Somehow it rubbed off on me. So you see, it's just a method. And you see, that particular method is for someone who's got, like, I always wanted to understand it. I really did. That was important to me. Was I wanted to know who I was. I wanted to know who I was. And I thought it was possible to figure it out. And I developed what Ramesh called a very deep understanding, which today I think is worthless.
Right.
But, you know, and even at the time I thought that was worthless. But from him that was a compliment.
But obviously that wasn't it.
No. No, but you know, that's as close as you can get as long as there's a me there. Mm-hmm. So just, So anyway, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. You know, really, I should just be sitting back in a corner and meditating all the time. People can come by and watch me drool or something. And but that wasn't how I was taught.
But that would work equally as well.
Well,
Maybe.
if anyone came, they go, oh, yeah, this holy drool.
But it's kind of our nature, isn't it, to try to figure it out.
Sure, it wasn't
So
mine.
if you're talking and we're listening and we're trying to digest and compartmentalize these
Well-
concepts, but that's totally missing the point.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's all different methods, okay?
Yeah.
Now, you see, for someone else who doesn't have that kind of mind, this is just kind of like whatever, and it's they're more interested in just love, love, love. Let's chant, let's chant. Let's whatever. It's like, and that's where they really resonate. You see, just bhakti, just see, and then but jnani with the mind, I have both going on, but my mind is very strong and needed to be dealt with actually. And so this helped. This helped. Someone else could bypass all this. Bhakti is a much easier path. You see. So I recommend it for those who can. I couldn't. That wasn't for me. Not alone. Not alone. Ultimately, the two paths converge. But you have to have both, but jnani is less necessary. But in my case, it was necessary. Yeah, so I got this, after Baba died, I got this real intellectual guru, who really tested the limits of my mind. And that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
In my case.
It just all circles around back to the same answer. anything I could ask you, you know, just comes back to just God, 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 God. Like
Right.
instead of me, it just God, God,
That's
God.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Indeed.
Because
So,
I want to say, you know, why the fuck am I still alive? I feel terrible. And then you just go, God, God, God. You know, there's no answer. Why are they changing my, you know, I'm so pissed at the government right now. I accepted the opiates and now they're going to take them away. Oh my God, my brain is spinning. And I just have to go, God, 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 don't kill yourself, Tracy. That's not an option. God, 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 God wants you here. You know, it's a bit of an insane world right now. Or
oh, it always was. It's just showing itself to you right now.
it's like, so the only answer that you've really given me is just be in the presence of God. Even when you're in pain, even when there's no answers, even when it doesn't make sense.
All of it are just sensations. They're sensations your mind judges as desirable or undesirable. And it's just what they are, you see. And it will continue. Life will continue to change. There's no avoiding it. Sometimes there'll be changes that you like, others not so much. That's how life is. So you should never be surprised by change. You see, you should expect it. That's the one thing that will always meet your expectations, is change.
I don't like change.
Yeah, well, you know, when I was in the ashram in Santa Monica, we had to change all the locks because I guess the whole neighborhood had keys to different rooms in these hotels. And so we had to change all of the cylinders, the lock sets. We used to put a note on people's doors because you couldn't warn people. It was just, we were just moving along. And all of a sudden they'd be locked out of their room. And so just put a note on people's doors and we put, in this world of change, you have not been spared. Please go to registration and pick up a new key.
You need a spare.
Hmm?
You need a spare.
Yeah. Yes.
So it seems like the main way that I get involved with my thoughts and feelings is through judgment. Like, you've spoken to this too, like, I like this is okay, this isn't okay. Is that true?
Oh, of course, that's one of the ways. Well, the fear is another way, but certainly judgment, you see. So like when I was saying to her, they're all just sensations. But you choose the ones that you like and the ones that you don't like. I like this is good. I don't like that, that's bad. So it just hooks you in. It hooks you in.
It's like the expressway, though.
The expressway to involvement,
Surface Street, but expressway.
that's the on-ramp to the involvement interstate. Well, so fine. Just recognize what it is, you see, is personal involvement with thought. It's okay to have a judgment. You may not like a certain thing. You may not like chocolate. You may never like chocolate. But you don't have to get involved with it. It's just what it is, you see. So there's a judgment that arises. If it's your judgment, if it's your life and your feelings and what you think is right, there's total involvement. If it's just a judgment, it's just a judgment. Let it be over there. Here's the thing, you see, what people do with spiritual teachings is they try and improve the me with them. And then you're judging the me for getting so involved, for having judgments. Why do you judge so much? Well, you see, unconditional love is fine with judgments. It's totally fine that you judge yourself, that you judge others, that you judge. Where the problem is, where the residue starts accumulating, is when you get personally involved with those judgments. So I really don't like the way I'm feeling right now. If that were it, then it would just pass. But now, if you personally said, I don't like this, and took it on, now you're like, how do I make this better? Why do I feel this way? Why did they do that anyway? I don't understand. I told them not to do. And you see how it just gets worse and worse and worse because of personal involvement. You see, if you could allow thoughts to simply come and go without grabbing onto them, then you'd live a much more peaceful life. And you wouldn't be totally lost and enmeshed in these thoughts. It's the personal involvement with them. So if you had the thought, I don't like this, and then that was it, it would be fine. It would just come and go. Maybe you wouldn't like it again in 5 minutes, but it would still just come and go. But if you have the thought, I don't like this, and then you take delivery of that thought, you sign off on it, and here you go, and now it's yours. And now you have to do something about it. And now you wonder why in the world you have to feel this, and where this came, and how can I fix this, and why Ananta says, and da-da-da-da-da. You see? It's Ramesh, he said, you see, you treat thought like an unwelcome guest. Now, Ramesh was an English gentleman, really. He was Indian, but he acted like an English gentleman. And so his idea of treating something like an unwelcome guest was just to ignore it. He wouldn't be rude. He would just ignore it. So I always picture like Ramesh, he would just go to his desk and start paying his bills and whatever. And he says then, if you had someone come over like that and you just ignore them, they would probably leave. And, you know, if they came back again and you did the same thing and didn't engage with them, they would probably leave again, and they would come by less and less. But if an unwelcome guest comes and you say, well, how have you been? What's up with you? And da-da-da-da-da, and you talk to them and you engage them, well, they're going to stay for a while. And then they're going to come back soon because they found a welcome home. You've invited them over for dinner. You fed them. So if you could stop taking delivery of these thoughts, if you could stop engaging with them further, then you would find that they're just simply thoughts. They just come and they go, just like all the other thoughts. You have thoughts all day that just come and go. Come and go, come and go, come and go. Oh, I don't like this one. I don't like the way this one makes me feel. Oh, I hate it, blah, blah, blah. Now you've engaged it, you see. If it was just a thought and it's like, ooh, this is lousy, and then that's it. It's done. You've just observed how the thought is, and then it passes, you see. But if you engage it by trying to figure out how to get rid of it, or how to make it better, or blah, 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 whatever it is, then you've basically said, I want to be friends with you. And so it sticks around. That's how it works. Yeah. So just take it as best you can. Notice when you're getting involved. Okay? Personal involvement is really the thing. That's the on-ramp. Okay? This is my thought, and I don't like it, and I don't like the way I feel. It's all me, 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 me. And now you're on the me train. Go into deep involvement. You see? So just, the thoughts are going to come and go. They always do. You know, I have thoughts all the time. They just come and go. You see, that's the nature of it. That's the nature.
Are your thoughts, do they have an eye?
Not so. The I doesn't develop, so it doesn't engage. So even if it had an I, there'd be no one associated with it. You see, so it's not the same quality. Not the same quality. Because it doesn't have that residue attached to it. So the way Ramesh used to say, the difference between a yogi and a bogey, a bogey being a normal person. You know, for a bogey, a thought arises and it's pursued. For a yogi, the same exact thought could arise, but it's not pursued. You see? So it's really living in the same exact place, except no one gets involved. You see, so it doesn't go anywhere. None of this yucky, continued residue-like feeling goes on for a yogi because no one gets involved. What you're feeling requires personal involvement. Otherwise, it would be nothing. Be water off a duck's back. Just be a feeling. Just be a this, just be a that, and then it would be gone. So notice your involvement and recognize it for what it is. The funny thing about the ego is when the ego is seen clearly, because it's an illusion, it just disappears. That's the nature of illusions. So the mind will not stand up to scrutiny. So when it's really looked at clearly, it just passes. So try that. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't.
That's the tricky thing when you got to be involved in the world and running your business and doing that, engaged and with the mind, and then be able to put it aside.
Baba was one of the busiest people I've ever known. He was always doing stuff. He was running to the kitchen and helping there. He was, during the intensives, he actually went every morning to Amrit to make a meal for everybody else, you know, to make some upma or syrup. Every morning he would, and then he would go to the intensive, and then there'd be private darshans and there'd be other stuff going on. He was busier than hell. So that's no excuse.
That's the practice. That's the practice then.
It's just,
engaging.
here's the thing. When you're no longer involved personally, you can be so focused on what you're doing. You can be 1,000% in your moment. Things go a lot more efficiently. You still have to deal with things. You know, the manager came up to Baba every day with different problems to deal with, different situations. One question after another. It's just everything had to be dealt with. There's, you see, all that is happening over here. But right here is just that sense of being. So who cares? No one gets involved. This is all going on. You still do what you do. And sometimes what you do works out really well, and other times it doesn't. But nobody here cares. And nobody here feels any guilt or any pride, because all that stuff is going on. You'd be amazed at how much of your life can go on without your personal involvement. Really. All of it. except for the suffering.
No one gets involved, no one gets hurt.
Not necessarily true.
No?
People can feel hurt. You never know. You never know.
Hurt.
You never know how people are going to respond. Mm-hmm. Well, there were plenty of people around Babu who felt hurt. It all went down. Yeah. So that's not true. But it doesn't matter. You see? It doesn't matter at all. Because no one was doing anything. Some people mistook it that someone was doing something. So, the thing about it is that when you're all involved in interacting and this and that, because it's still personal, you lose track of what the truth is. You lose track of that essence that should be primary, you see. And it's only because of the personal involvement that a veil is created over what is your true nature. That's all. That's all. So you see people mistake that if they just sit quietly in an ashram or something, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's it. And then they get back home and they're involved in work and they forget all about it, you see. So all that is just a temporary experience again. And it's based upon controlling your involvement, your environment, so that your involvement doesn't pop up as strongly. But basically, let the involvement happen to someone else. You don't need to be concerned with it. None of it. None of it is happening to you. With Baba, I told this story recently, but you weren't here, so I'll tell it again. I was going up for darshan, and it must have been 5 lines, and I ended up on the women's side, and on the way down, the women were looking pretty good to me. And I was thinking things that one might not ought to think just before they're going to meet their guru. And then I realized, I said, well, that's not me anyway. And I'd forgotten all about it. And I bow down, Baba. And as I get up, Baba gets out of his chair. And he's hitting me with the peacock feathers going, yes, yes, yes. So I'd remember to tell it now. So you see just that none of this is happening to you. There's just this, you have the television on. And none of that's happening to you. And even if you're watching it, that's not you. I mean, even the actors aren't doing anything real. They're all faking it. And they're reading scripts and you're getting involved in whatever. And so you just have the TV on in the background. The show's still going on. There's still all this stuff supposedly happening, and you're not really paying much attention to it. That's how life ought to be, you see. There's this show going on. There's this, the Michael show, it's just going on. But it's nothing to do with you. It's just a show. It's just going on. Yeah. Yeah, so let the show continue. Let someone else be involved with it. It just goes on. Things happen, things work out well, things that work out poorly. It just goes on. But it's not who you are. It could never be who you are because it's just a fantasy. It's a passing thing. It comes and it goes. It's purely temporary. And you are eternal. So as soon as you get that straight, it'll all be fixed by itself. that nothing could distract you from it. Yes.
You know, the thoughts that kind of hook me are fear-based. I'm just wondering if once you become awakened, do those subside, or they just go past you and don't stick? Or what happens?
Okay. There's two different kinds of fear. There's a natural fear. So, the story I tell about Ramesh, we took him, when he came to Maui to visit us, he gave a seminar, and we took him to Lahaina. There was a place there called Greens, and they had exotic animals. And it's a fun place to go to, mostly birds and stuff. And they put a cockatoo on Ramesh's shoulder. And Ramesh looked over and whoop, he was afraid he was going to pick him in the face. And I said, oh, here's a man who's not afraid of death, but he's afraid of a little bird. And we all had a good laugh. Well, he used it the next day in the talk. There's natural fears that arise. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It would just be spontaneous, you see. If you feel, if you feel fire on your hand, you're going to move it away. You're going to have fear arise. It's just spontaneous and natural. Okay? No me necessary. But then there's the other fears that arise. Oh God, this could be a real fuck up. What if I get audited?
Those are the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah. No. Those are the fears of me, you see. Now, even if they arose, in this case, they would not be pursued. So it could possibly arise, but then it would just subside. And that would be the end of that. You see? So just when the fear arises, you see, you have to understand that the natural state of personal identification is fear. If you boil everything down, you're going to find a lot of fear and grief there. You see? Because that's how it would feel to be pulled away from your essence, to be pulled away from the mother like that. You would feel naturally afraid, and you would feel naturally grief, this sense of separation. So what you're having are experiences that would be natural for someone who mistakenly identified themselves with something other than God, something separate from God. So that you have compassion, because that, of course, is how you would feel. Now, when these things arise, if no one gets involved, then it just passes, you see? Even if it comes up, every 5 minutes for a while, it would just pass and pass and pass. But when it sticks, it's because of your personal involvement, taking it further than just a thought, to a worry and a concern, and what am I going to do about this, and what would I do if this happened, blah, 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 blah. And then you're right on the on-ramp to personal involvement. Okay? So just recognize it for what it is. Oh, I'm involved. You see? So that's all that needs to happen. Oh, there's involvement. And if you're able to just really clearly see your personal fingers in this, your personal judgments, you're personally getting engaged with it, when you see that, it generally releases to some extent, generally. There's some things that are very strong and they don't. You see, and then you have to endure it. But see what the involvement is, and recognize that that's what keeps it going. Because if you can see how this monkey works, if you can see the dynamics that keep everything in place, like I say, the illusion does not stand up to scrutiny. When you can really, really see it, you can see that there's no there there. The only there is in this moment. Now, which is beyond thought. All your thoughts are just temporary appearances. They come and they go. They come and they go. Some of them have feelings attached to them. And those are the ones that are troubling if they're feelings you don't like. If they're feelings you do like, you don't have a problem with it. Those thoughts can stay. In fact, let's embellish them. Because I like the way they feel. You see? So does that answer your question though?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good then. Last call.
I have a good question.
Okay.
I'll be brief. So, say it's not a thought, but in this movie of your life, you're just driving down the road. This is an example, and some dodo bird just decides to side you with his car or something. This is extreme. So there's just an instantaneous reaction before you really even notice any thoughts.
Yes.
Or say that there are thoughts, but you know that following them is not going to lead you to any great place.
Mm-hmm.
So then, say the whole situation just gets dealt with, but then there's like a residue of emotion, and you can watch it. Okay, so there's the witness, but the residue of emotion is still there. Like, sometimes I end up saying, oh, okay, well, are you this creature, this small little ant creature, or are you the universe? Sometimes that is helpful. But then, say the residue just lasts for 2 days, even without following the thoughts, even without, so there's some identification, obviously, with the body-mind, because the residue is lasting.
Yes.
Then you just wait till it passes. I mean, you can give it to the feet of God. I mean, there's all these different little techniques for non-involvement, but in the end, you just gut it out or wait it out, or
Why don't you embrace it the way it is?
just let it be.
How
Yeah.
about if that,
Like looking at the resistance to.
how about if that residue, whatever it is, stayed with you for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Just the way it is, would that be okay?
Yeah.
You see, because if it is, then you've got no problem and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And you just relax.
Yeah.
But you see, what you're describing is,
Yeah.
how do I solve this problem because I don't like the way it feels?
Yeah, because you want to get rid of it.
So
You're in
what you're doing now is
resistance,
just engaging the ego some more in a process of trying to get rid of the ego,
Yeah.
which the ego is fully involved with, so it won't work. You'll be able to get closer maybe. You have that potential of getting closer, but
Yeah.
you don't have the potential of getting any closer than closer.
Yeah.
You see, so it's all right.
Yeah.
Everything's perfectly okay, just the way it is. You're okay, just the way you are. You know what? You're just as fucked up as God made you, and that's it. It's like you're fine. It's like
Yeah.
it's not a problem. It's not a problem.
All right.
It's okay, and
Yeah.
when you accept that about yourself, you'll see it in everyone. And you realize, we're all in the same boat.
That's the trick, is not trying to get rid of some yucky energy that happened.
You're trying to improve the ego.
Yeah.
And the one who's trying to improve the ego is the ego.
Yeah.
Because God doesn't care. The ego isn't real anyway, you see. It's just an illusion, a temporary one at that. So just, why not just take whatever it is and fully embrace it the way it is without the condition that it go away? You know, people are perfectly willing to love the aspects of themselves they don't like as long as they'll just go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Mm-hmm.